Does the Big 12 even know who Sawyer Robertson is? Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube on Rogue Media Sports Network. And if you're watching on YouTube, I apologize. It's probably the worst lighting I've ever had for an episode and framing because I'm doing it in another hotel room. So look, you got to do what you got to do. This is your team every day. This is part of every day. So we're going to talk about the Big 12 awards today and how Baylor got absolutely screwed. Amazingly. Plus a look back at signing day, hear what Dave Aranda had to say about it because we were focused a lot on basketball yesterday. And we've got bowl projections and we've got bowl actual invitations coming up this weekend. So who do you want to see? We'll tackle that later on with all that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. So the Big 12 announces their individual awards today, and they're all conference teams. And I've been saying it all season long. Sawyer Robertson and Bryson Washington are all Big 12 players. And when the list comes out today, neither one of them are on the first or second team. And I'm like, really? Because and this is before I even looked at the teams, because I'm like, obviously SHEDEUR is going to be the first team quarterback and probably going to be the offensive player of the year. He was both those things. And so I'm like, who are they picking second? Like, are we still doing the Fafita hype? Like he didn't live up to this. Looking at the last couple of weeks, man, like there was no doubt who the second best quarterback in the conference was. It was Sawyer Robertson. Like that was really not up for debate. Because Josh Hoover's numbers trailed off a little bit the last couple of weeks, or else, statistically, he'd be right up there. And I look and I see Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt is the second team all Big 12 quarterback over Sawyer Robertson? Okay. All right. To be honest, when I saw his numbers, they were better than I thought. But you know what they're not? They're not as good as Sawyer Robertson's. And Sam Leavitt got a 2-game head start on Sawyer. Sawyer didn't even start till week 3. So not only is he lead the best turnaround, in-season turnaround in the conference, but his numbers are better than Leavitt's. So where's the math here? Like, what am I missing? Because I look at all the counting stats, 2,400 yards, 21 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a 78.6 QBR, ESPN QBR for Sam Leavitt. That's a good, solid year. You know what it's not? It's not 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns to 7 picks, and an 83.9 QBR. It's not that. If I just gave you those two stat lines there, you would say, obviously, the latter is the better quarterback, had the better year. And yet, Sawyer Robertson's numbers in the latter are not good enough to beat out Sam Leavitt for all Big 12 second team. In fact, there are reports that Sawyer Robertson did not even get a vote shouldn't say that. Let me backtrack that because that did not come out of my mouth, right? Got less votes than about half the league. Okay. He got less votes than obviously Leavitt, Rocco Becht, Josh Hoover, and Jake Retzlaff. Like how do you watch a game with those two quarterbacks and say, yeah, Jake Retzlaff is better than Sawyer Robertson? It's bonkers. It is absolutely bananas. This is why no one can take this conference seriously outside of our truck stops. Because of crap like this. Like in no world are those guys better quarterbacks nor had a better season than Sawyer Robertson did. 5th in the nation in total QBR. Baylor football tweeted that out on Thursday afternoon. Obviously pointed towards the Big 12 offices. In fact, it's getting to the point where I'm thinking that the Big 12 really forgets that Sawyer Robertson and Bryson Washington are in it. And I mean, look, going further in the numbers, I mean, Once conference play started, he was second in the conference in passing touchdowns, third in efficiency, and fourth in yards per game at 257 per game. That's coming from Sikkim 365. Like, it absolutely boggles my mind. And when we talk about the times that Sawyer and or Bryson Washington got snubbed for these weekly awards, it was always to Arizona State guys. And here we go, all Big 12 team time. And suddenly Sam Leavitt's had a better year than Sawyer Robertson. Please make it make sense. Please. And I did see some arguments out there of, well, Sam Leavitt's team's in the Big 12 championship game. Correct. You're right. Sawyer Robertson's isn't. And neither is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders' team is not there. Should he just not have won the player of the year? No, he should have. He absolutely should have. So that's a nice thing to have. And obviously, as Baylor fans, we'd rather have that than all Big 12 second team. But you just can't, find me a metric, please. Somebody in the comments, find me a metric that says that Sam Leavitt individually had a better season than Sawyer Robertson. Like, Sawyer has better counting stats across the board, and he played 2 less games. I don't get it. Is there an appeal to the new teams in the conference? Is that what this is? Because, you can easily mask that with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders because they deserve those awards, Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. But once you start throwing Sam Leavitt, I'm sorry. This feels like an MLB Hall of Fame argument. At what point this year in watching Big 12 football did you say, yeah, it's Shedeur and then it's Sam Leavitt? It's just I can't even believe it. And look, I like Sam. He's a good player. And I like this Arizona State team. They're a fun story. But he's not better than Sawyer Robertson. I'm not even sorry about it. And I mean, Bryson Washington getting little to no love at all in this. Baylor wins 8 games, 6 wins in a row to close out the season. And you're looking at, a couple of guys in the first team. That would be Josh Cameron for special teams. Their 2 linebackers, Matt Jones and Keaton Thomas, and the punter, Palmer Williams, who is the best punter in the conference. In second team, you've got Michael Trigg. And then you've got honorable mentions with Josh Cameron at receiver, Snacks Johnson, Trevor Ma'ai, Jackie Marshall, Gavin Yates, Omar Agbedian. Notice another name I didn't say there. Sawyer Robertson not only does not get second team, he didn't even get honorable mention. I will honorably mention Sawyer Robertson every damn day on this podcast for the next year, if that's what it takes for the Big 12 to remember that he's in the conference. Sawyer Robertson, you have been mentioned honorably. I'm telling you, there's a very real situation where a month into next season, Sawyer Robertson's getting Heisman talks. That's real. And it should be building off an all Big 12 season. And this, I know it seems silly, who cares about individual awards, but that actually might hurt him for bigger awards next year. Because, we know it, the Big 12 doesn't care about Baylor. They don't think that Baylor exists and that these players are any good at football. And everyone outside of the Big 12 doesn't want to know that the Big 12 exists. And they don't watch Big 12 games. So he's going to get no love for any kind of postseason awards next year, even if he is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in part because he doesn't get any recognition now. And that is total bull. The Big 12 should be embarrassed. It's not the only thing they should be embarrassed about. But again, at no point for the eye test, was Sam Leavitt a better quarterback this year than Sawyer Robertson? And not on the stat sheet. So what makes him better? It's baffled me all day. I have been driving through some of the great flyover states of our beautiful conference and just trying to rack my brain around that. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'm curious as to what you guys think. Please get involved in the comments down below, and please try to give me a reason why Sawyer Robertson is apparently not a better quarterback than Sam Leavitt, because he could have fooled me the way he was playing all season long Look, y'all, I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not just going to crawl through the frozen tundra of Ames, Iowa to save a couple bucks. It's got to be easy, right? No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for 15 bucks a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I didn't believe it. I was skeptical, but it turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for just 15 bucks a month. The longest part of the process was trying to tell my old provider before I hung up on them. So to get started, you're going to go to mintmobile.com/locked-on-college. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only 15 bucks a month, including the unlimited plan. They all come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just 15 bucks a month, go to mintmobile.com/locked-on-college. That's mintmobile.com/locked-on-college. Cut your wireless bill to 15 bucks a month at mintmobile.com/locked-on-college. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to 15 bucks a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower than 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. So I thought the Bears had plenty of all Big 12 players this year. The conference didn't agree. I'll tell you what, though, they signed a couple of future all Big 12 players on Wednesday. What we're calling National Signing Day now. It's really the early signing period, which is really the National Signing Day now because of all these early enrollees. But you guys already know that. I talked about it on yesterday's show a little bit, but I want to reiterate how impressive this is, especially with the trauma that Baylor's had in this particular signing day over the last few years. They got 21 commitments and they got 21 signees. You can't ask for better than that. I mean, literally, it's perfect. It's perfect. You even had some of the best programs in the country flirting with these guys, right? Caleb Burns at Oregon, Taz Williams at Michigan, and God only knows who else. I mean, Edward Griffin for sure was getting more offers and more interest from big time programs with the senior season he had. But they're sticking with Baylor. There is a belief in this regime and the future of this program. This is like I don't want to say it's a fork in the road. It's like it's one of those when like a big play happens in a game where your team gets a big break or a big save in hockey or soccer or something like that, and you're like, mark that down. Mark that down. That could turn the tide of this. Like this recruiting class could be a turning point right now. Just this moment in history that we're in on December 6th, 2024, where you're coming off a 6-game winning streak. And not only are you one of the hottest teams in the conference, but you're getting slighted still. You're buying into the message with the head coach, and you've got an awesome recruiting class coming in that's also buying into the message and is also feeling those slights. If you're leading a program, that's like the best case scenario, right? Like you're really good and you've got motivation going forward and you've got reinforcements coming in. And that's what this recruiting class is going to give to Baylor. And I think there are some guys who are going to be able to start pretty quickly or get some meaningful snaps pretty quickly. And one thing I really liked about this, if you look up and down these 21 guys, so many of them are from Texas. And there's a couple 4-stars in there. Now, you might be saying like, well, obviously, Cam, that's what it should be. Your school's in Texas. But for those of us who've been following it closely, you'll know that Dave Aranda has not always hit on, what's going on in their backyards. I mean, we talked about Micah Hudson at the beginning of the week. He was the best player in all of Texas last year. He's Lake Belton, right down the road. And Baylor was nowhere close to it. So that's what I'm talking about. And Torian York was a Temple kid, originally committed to Baylor. He goes to A&M. Quentin Johnston, going back a couple of years, another Temple kid, goes to TCU. Kobe Black, one of the top recruits in the state of Texas last year from Conley, which is in Waco. Baylor didn't even sniff him. UT, no problem. Like it's been a huge issue. And thankfully, it's getting better. They've got some Lorena kids the last couple of years. They're in the running for Jamarion Vincent, who's now the Conley quarterback, who's going to be a 4-star guy. So it's getting better. But to just get Texas nailed down is crucial for Baylor. All great teams that this program has had has been built on guys from Texas, obviously. And it was a worry coming into this year with Jake Spavital on the staff, as he famously did not do well with Texas high school football recruiting when he was the Texas State head coach. He went straight to the portal. Dave Aranda didn't have the great relationships, but Keenan Hall does. And so Baylor really did well in Texas this year. And here's Dave Aranda talking about the importance of recruiting their own backyard.
Well, it's good to be able to have the relationships to be able to recruit in state, and just the quality of football that's played here, the coaching that's here, the development that's here, and then just the lineage, right? And so there's guys that have come from schools where we've recruited a fair amount of. There's guys that maybe we haven't recruited there recently, and we want to be able to start something. And so I think all of those things you can parlay into a history and a tradition, and we need to be able to do that. Just being where we are in the state, and just so centrally located, there's a bunch of moms and dads who are going to be able to come watch their boy play.
The last part there that he talks about is something that we should always remember when we're going to make excuses about Baylor not getting the best recruits. Because is it UT or A&M in terms of that prestige and that money and those championship banners? No. Well, A&M championship banners, maybe take that part out. But no, those are always going to be the two biggest programs in Texas, and they're going to have the most resources, and they're going to have the most pull, right? But just because Baylor's small and private, I've always thought this, does not give it a great excuse when you are right down the road, like an hour and a half away from the biggest high school football hotbed on the planet Earth. Okay. And you're pretty close to another couple big ones too. Like in terms of a region of the country, there is no one close to DFW. There's Southern Cal's great. Southern Florida is really good too. But DFW is just like an NFL training camp, these high schools, man. And that's not even mentioning how good they are in Austin and San Antonio, and especially in Houston. Baylor's within good driving distance of all of those places. You know who's not? Tech. Okay, they're not. LSU is not. Arkansas certainly is not. Oklahoma is not. Although they're pretty close to DFW, obviously. But they're not as close as Baylor is to all of those places. So I've never liked that excuse. Even if it means you're getting the best 3-star guys in the country because they're being outshone in DFW, that's fine. But there's no excuse to not get a huge crop of talent from Texas with the facilities that you have, with the amount of guys you put in the pros, and how close you are to all of it. No excuse. No excuse. That's why you're different from Vanderbilt and even Stanford from a different part of California. There's no excuse for that. And when it comes to the momentum that this team had in recruiting, obviously Keenan Hall was a big part of it, but there's really two guys that got this thing kickstarted: Taz Williams and Cameron Morgan, in reverse order. Here's what Dave said about the importance of those guys as it related to closing this class.
Yeah, when that happens, you can go from kind of being uncool to being cool again, when you kind of get out the way and let the cool kids do it, And so I think that's really what was happening there. And their leadership within the class is something I'm very appreciative and thankful for. It's something I talked to both of them about this morning when we were talking. Their ability to make plays and their academic prowess, and all of it is strong. Their leadership is really the number one thing, and they led this class from the minute they jumped in.
Cameron Morgan is really the one that got this started. 4-star edge guy. He was at Red Oak with Taz Williams at South Oak Cliff this year, and playing in these state semis today. today as you're watching this against Port Neches Grove, a rematch, third straight year. Oh, that's going to be great. I love high school football, but that's not what we're talking about. Kamorn Morgan, it didn't fit the mold. Baylor's not had a good pass rusher in the last couple of years. The guys that they were bringing on board were offensive guys, mainly because of that Keenan Hall connection and Keenan Hall coaching running backs as well. And here the domino falls of your first 4-star in the class, and it's a defensive player. And there's this innocuous tweet of like, is Taz Williams going to come with him? Because they were good friends in high school. But he's the most recruited player in Texas. He's not really taking Baylor seriously from an outside perspective. Taz isn't, he's talking about Michigan and UT and a couple other schools. And then he shocks the world in July with that live commitment where he commits to Baylor. And everyone's like, what? That wasn't even on the list. Like the hat wasn't even on the table. He just pulled it out from under the table. That's what got this thing started. There were a couple other good players signed before that. I don't want to make it sound like there weren't, but those guys, two of the best in the best region of high school football in the country, coming out and saying, yeah, we believe in this message. You guys seen the plays that we make. You see the offers we get, but we believe in this Baylor thing. That took off for a lot of it. So I really do want to believe that this is a special recruiting class. Maybe it's just because we're prisoners of the moment. Maybe it's just because the context of this thing is so good right now. But this could be a class that hopefully we look back on and be like, yeah, we were getting the ball rolling in the right direction, but these guys are what really changed it for more of a long-term thing. So I'm hoping that's the case. I really do. We have got bowl projections out the wazoo, but we've actually got a bowl matchup that's going to be announced on Sunday. So who is it going to be for Baylor, and who do we want? That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, how about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and proud sponsor of today's episode? Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you're going to be able to check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, the reckoning hour for the actual bowl matchups is coming up on Sunday morning, actually. We will find out where Baylor is actually going to play. And Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, the true czar of the bowl projections, has made his final projections. And it's looking like Baylor will be in the Texas Bowl, and he's got them playing Louisiana State University, coached by Brian Kelly. You might have heard of them. I don't see any way where they're not playing in the Texas Bowl. I know there are other opportunities that they can play in, and I just, if that's offered to them, there's no way they're going to pass it up. Playing LSU is very interesting to me because all the other things we talked about, like the A&M matchup in terms of how it behooves them, huge alumni base around there. They're going to have a bunch of fans there. Why wouldn't you do that? Like all those same things apply to LSU. You don't have the old rivalry with Baylor like A&M does, but I mean, Houston is one of their biggest alumni bases. It's right there. They can absolutely, punch out their side of the stadium and more, which is something I take into account, even though, I'm not going to be at the game because I don't live in Texas anymore, but it would be pretty cool to see a quote unquote meaningless bowl game actually have a ton of fanfare around it. And LSU is a team I don't mind seeing. Let's just say that. I'm not going to say yet that Baylor's going to, really take them to the woodshed or anything, but it's a team that I don't mind seeing. An 8-4 team that has been really up and down this year. They've had, for my money, like one quality win on the year, and that was beating Ole Miss at Death Valley in overtime. But I'm sure they would say the same about Baylor, right? Like, who have they played? I think they beat South Carolina as well. So I'll give them that. I like the South Carolina team. But they've been really scuffling like as of late in terms of, I guess, just up and down. They barely beat a Vanderbilt team that's now limping. They lost to a Florida team a couple weeks ago. They beat Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, but who doesn't do that? They lost pretty bad to A&M at the end of October. So, like, it's been real up and down. I think Brian Kelly doesn't know exactly what he's got from this group. I think Nussmeier is a good quarterback. But I look at that. I was watching a lot of that Florida game, and Florida's been playing good football the last month, but like Baylor's better than Florida. Baylor is a better team than Florida right now. And the Gators kind of worked LSU. Like I think it only ended up being a 10-point win, but it didn't feel that close most of the game. So I wouldn't mind that matchup. I really wouldn't. Would I prefer Arkansas in terms of like how easy the win would be? Yes. Yes, I think LSU's better than Arkansas. Would have also saw some projections with Baylor playing OU, which would be awesome. Absolutely awesome. I would take that in a heartbeat. But I think this is a great matchup. 8-4 LSU, 8-4 Baylor, SEC Big 12. They've beaten a couple ranked teams. Baylor hasn't. So LSU would certainly be the favorite in that. In fact, in McMurphy's projections, he's got LSU as a 4.5-point favorite already. Welcome that. Because again, what I talked about earlier in the show, this Baylor team's pissed off. Okay. They shouldn't be, because they'd won 6 straight games. They're probably feeling pretty good about themselves. And now they're getting slighted again. Now no one's believing in them. They're not getting any votes for the top 25, which is tough for a 4-loss team. I get it. And they're not getting any real recognition in these Big 12 awards. They're getting snubbed still, week after week, and now the postseason awards. So this team's pissed. And they are going to take any bowl game more seriously than an SEC team is, because we see it year after year. SEC teams don't care if it's not the playoff. Every year we see it. So certainly Baylor's going to take this thing more seriously. They've got better momentum coming into this game. I will take on all comers at this point in terms of the ones that they're projected to play, right? LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas. The Bama one's probably out the window because now they're getting playoff hype. I'd take on all of them the way this Baylor team's playing right now. They feel like they've still got something to prove, and this bowl game is going to be something to prove. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you want to see them play? And if they play LSU, how do you think they're going to do? Drop that down in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a lot. And most of you watching are still not subscribed, so that would seriously, seriously help. And we will have the results for you whenever those come out for what bowl Baylor's going to go to. And we're certainly going to deep dive into that on Monday's show. We will see you then on Locked On Baylor.